Imagine a dolphin, once thriving in the wild, then rescued or born into captivity, now facing the ultimate challenge, returning to the vast, complex ocean. It sounds like a dream, right? But for many rescued or captive-raised dolphins, rejoining a wild pod isn't a natural transition, it's a monumental hurdle. Today, we're diving into the profound behavioral science that explains why these incredibly intelligent marine mammals struggle with social reintegration, and how dedicated rehabilitation centers are addressing the deep psychological trauma they often carry. Our investigation begins with understanding the core of a dolphin's existence, their intricate social world. For dolphins, society isn't just a convenience, it's a matter of survival. According to marine biologists at institutions like the Sarasota Dolphin Research Program, wild dolphins live in highly fluid, fish-infusion societies. This means pods constantly change in size and composition, forming alliances, sharing hunting grounds, and defending territories. These social bonds are not superficial, they are vital for protection, cooperative hunting, and even teaching young calves essential life skills. A dolphin without a pod is a dolphin at a significant disadvantage, highlighting the immense pressure to integrate successfully. Beyond social structures, communication is paramount. Dolphins possess a sophisticated communication system, relying on clicks, whistles, and echolocation. Dr. Denise Herzing, a pioneer in dolphin communication research, has spent decades studying wild Atlantic spotted dolphins, observing signature whistles unique to each individual, essentially, a dolphin's name. Captive-raised dolphins, however, often grow up in environments with limited or no exposure to this complex language. They might develop simplified or abnormal vocalizations, making it incredibly difficult to understand or be understood by a wild pod. This isn't just a communication gap, it's a social chasm. Now, let's compare. Wild dolphins experience rich, dynamic social lives. In captivity, even in the best facilities, the social environment is inherently restricted. According to Dr. Lori Marino, a neuroscientist and expert on marine mammal cognition, captive dolphins often live in fixed groups, sometimes with individuals they would never naturally associate with. This can lead to chronic stress, aggression, or social withdrawal. The nuanced social etiquette learned over generations in the wild is simply not available in a concrete tank, leaving a profound deficit in their behavioral repertoire. This brings us to the core issue: psychological trauma. Marine mammal experts, including those at the National Marine Mammal Foundation, identify a range of stress-related behaviors in dolphins that have experienced prolonged captivity or traumatic events like strandings. These can manifest as stereotypic behaviors, repetitive, aimless actions like endlessly circling a tank, or self-inflicted injuries. Dr. Isabella Clegg's research on cetacean welfare has often highlighted these abnormal behaviors as clear indicators of psychological distress, a significant hurdle for any reintegration effort. The brain, much like our own, remembers these experiences. One of the most profound behavioral changes observed in captive dolphins is a loss of self-sufficiency. In the wild, dolphins must hunt, forage, and actively avoid predators. In captivity, food is provided, threats are absent, and healthcare is administered by humans. This fosters a state of dependency, sometimes termed learned helplessness, where the animal loses its innate drive to solve problems or seek food independently. According to rehabilitation specialists at the Institute for Marine Mammal Studies, IMMS, reversing this deep-seated dependency is one of the most challenging aspects of preparing a dolphin for release. So, how do rehabilitation centers tackle these profound issues? Their approach is multifaceted, beginning with immediate physical and psychological stabilization. The first step, as outlined by organizations like the Dolphin Project, is to create a secure, enriching environment that minimizes stress. This often involves quiet pools, reduced human interaction, and the introduction of novel enrichment items to stimulate natural behaviors. The goal isn't just physical recovery, it's about building a foundation of trust and psychological comfort before any thought of release can even begin to materialize. Before any talk of release, a comprehensive behavioral assessment is crucial. Experts from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA Fisheries, often emphasize this. They look for specific indicators. Does the dolphin show natural foraging instincts? Can it avoid human interaction? Does it exhibit appropriate social behaviors with other dolphins in a controlled setting? These aren't simple yes or no questions. They involve weeks, sometimes months, of observation and data collection. This meticulous process helps determine if the dolphin has truly started to shed its captive behaviors and re-engage with its wild instincts. One of the most critical rehabilitation steps is retraining foraging skills. Remember that learned helplessness? Rehabilitation centers meticulously design programs to counteract it. This often involves reducing reliance on hand feeding and introducing live prey into large, naturalistic habitats. The goal is to encourage natural hunting behaviors, allowing the dolphin to chase, catch, and consume fish independently. This isn't just about food, it's about rebuilding confidence and agency. Experts at the SeaWorld Rescue and Rehabilitation Program, for example, have developed sophisticated methods to transition dolphins from prepared food to live fish, sometimes even hiding prey to stimulate active hunting. Addressing the language barrier is equally vital. Rehabilitation facilities utilize various techniques to re-expose dolphins to natural wild vocalizations. This can involve playing recordings of wild dolphin pods, especially those from the target release area. More advanced approaches, described by researchers at the Dolphin Communication Project, focus on introducing the rescued dolphin to a healthy, wild-savvy dolphin mentor, if available and appropriate. This peer-to-peer learning can be incredibly effective, allowing the rescued animal to observe and mimic natural communication patterns, slowly rebuilding their understanding of subtle social cues. The reintegration process is meticulously gradual. It's never a simple open-the-gate scenario. Rehabilitation protocols, often guided by organizations like the Marine Mammal Stranding Center, typically involve phases. First, the rescued dolphin might be introduced to a small, stable group of other rehabilitated dolphins. This allows them to practice social skills in a controlled environment. Next, they might be moved to a larger, semi-wild enclosure, like a sea pen, where they can encounter wild dolphins at a safe distance, observing interactions without immediate pressure. This slow acclimatization is key to reducing stress and increasing the likelihood of acceptance by a wild pod. Even with careful preparation, success isn't guaranteed. One of the most significant challenges is outright rejection or even aggression from wild pods. Wild dolphins are highly territorial and wary of strangers. A dolphin that smells, sounds, or behaves differently can be perceived as a threat or an unwelcome intruder. According to reports from the National Aquarium's Animal Rescue Program, some released dolphins have been observed being actively chased away or isolated by wild groups. This highlights the deep-seated social hierarchy and vigilance of wild pods, making entry incredibly difficult for an outsider. Beyond social acceptance, practical survival skills are paramount. A captive-raised dolphin might lack the nuanced knowledge of its wild counterparts, such as predator avoidance strategies, navigation of complex coastlines, or recognizing dangerous currents. Even a dolphin rescued and rehabilitated after a stranding might have lingering physical or mental deficits. Research by the Chicago Zoological Society's Sarasota Dolphin Research Program indicates that knowing local foraging grounds and understanding seasonal changes are critical. Without these honed instincts, a released dolphin faces an uphill battle for survival, often struggling to find sufficient food or evade sharks. Successful rehabilitation isn't just about release, it's about long-term monitoring. After release, dolphins are often fitted with satellite tags to track their movements, diving patterns, and association with wild pods. Data collected by organizations like the Loggerhead Marine Life Center provides invaluable insights into their post-release behavior, allowing researchers to assess foraging success, social interactions, and overall health. This rigorous follow-up is essential for understanding the efficacy of rehabilitation protocols and informing future decisions. It's how we learn which strategies work and which need further refinement. Despite the immense challenges, there have been documented successes. The Dolphin Research Center, for instance, has successfully rehabilitated and released animals like Springer, an orphaned orca, who later thrived in a wild pod. However, these are often the exceptions. For many, especially those captive-born, release may never be a viable option due to their inability to acquire necessary survival skills or fully recover from psychological trauma. Marine mammal ethicists debate the quality of life in captivity versus the potential for suffering in a failed release. These are incredibly tough decisions, weighing individual animal welfare against the ideal of freedom. For dolphins deemed unsuitable for wild release, a growing alternative is the marine mammal sanctuary. Unlike traditional aquariums, these facilities prioritize the animal's welfare above public display or entertainment. They offer vast, naturalistic sea pens where dolphins can live out their lives with minimal human interaction, ample space, and opportunities for natural behaviors. The National Aquarium's Dolphin Sanctuary Project is one such initiative, providing a permanent home for dolphins that cannot survive in the wild but deserve a life beyond concrete tanks. It represents a compassionate middle ground, prioritizing dignity when true freedom isn't possible. The journey for rescued dolphins is fraught with complexity, deeply rooted in their intricate behavioral psychology. As we've investigated, the challenges range from social isolation and communication deficits to deep-seated psychological trauma and learned helplessness. Yet, the dedicated efforts of rehabilitation centers, armed with evolving scientific understanding, offer a beacon of hope. By focusing on behavioral assessment, intensive skill retraining, gradual social reintroduction, and long-term monitoring, they are continuously refining their approach. While success remains challenging, every lesson learned brings us closer to giving these magnificent creatures the best possible chance at a wild, thriving life.